Okay, so for a long time I've been talking about my definition of professional, and I started doing this YouTube channel around the end of 2012 after reseller ratings really irritated me and did what I thought was borderline, I would say, just kind of mafia-ish behavior of extorting people for more money based on the fact that they had clout with Google, and I've talked about that a lot. Now, the thing is, after I saw that video got such a good reaction from people who were like-minded, I started putting up more videos of just my thoughts on business, my thoughts on ethics, my thoughts on customer service, my thoughts on, just general things in business. And one of the things that I found with the internet, one of my favorite things with the internet, is the fact that as one of the things that Ze Frank says is that with the internet you are never going to feel alone. He would say that when you start typing into Google, why does my, and Google would auto-complete it to something like knee hurt or ear whatever. He joked and he would say, look, see, there's other people out there just like me that are Googling what's wrong with them rather than going to the doctor. And there's this great feeling of knowing that there's other people out there that are thinking just like you, that have the same thoughts as you, that have the same ideas as you, and the same irritations that you have. And one of the things that I found with YouTube is that there are some thoughts I've had in my head where I really thought to myself, I might be the only person in the world who thinks this. Does that make me strange? Does that make me irrational? And what I found out is that thousands of other people actually agreed with my thoughts. There are a lot of people out there that disagree with me, rightfully so sometimes, and there are a lot of people who just have a different opinion than me, which is totally cool. But one of the great things about the internet is that it acts as this really great uniting force for people that may think the same as you. And it's a cool thing. Now, since I was putting up all of these videos and all this content where I was saying exactly what I thought and not quite sugarcoating it very well, I would get these comments along the lines of like, you're not going to be in business very long. You're going to be out of business. I can't imagine anybody that would send stuff to somebody who talks like this. Nobody in their right mind would do business with you. And in 2012 and 2013, I could say that I was in business, but I couldn't really say with any type of definitive stance that I wasn't damaging my business because I had only been doing that content for a short period of time. I had maybe 10 subscribers on YouTube. Very few people even knew what this was or found me through it. A lot of the people who were customers of my business had no idea that I did a YouTube channel with YouTube content. So I really didn't have a defense to that because my business was in its infancy state at the time. But now we're coming up on almost 4 years, just about almost 4 years of putting up this content online. And what I've noticed is that business has never been better. It really hasn't. And for all these people that would say that because you put this content up there, this is going to ruin your professionalism. Nobody is ever going to want to do business with you. Nobody is ever going to want to deal with you. I'm finding the exact opposite, and I'd like to give my theory as to why that is. So a lot of people will say that, if you're going to put up media content, if you're going to do a website, if you're going to do advertising and promotion, what you want to do is make sure you put up content that is not too racy, that's not going to offend anybody, that nobody can potentially take the wrong way, and that you need to make this really, really generic content. And it reminds me of something that Bob Olson used to say. He's a mastering engineer from Motown, who's also a regular on the Womb Forums. The Womb Forums is a great recording engineering production forum. It's a very small, tightly knit community of people. It's not very popular, and it's staffed primarily. Most of the people who visit there are people who've actually done something in the music business with their life, rather than all the wannabes. And it was a great place for me as a teenager. It was a great place for me to go and visit. And just kind of absorb everything that was being spoken about, and really learn from people who had a lot to teach, people who I aspire to have, the same type of critical thinking skills and social skills and business savvy of. So there was a lot to learn there. And one of the things that Bob Olson used to say is when you're trying, one of the things that you should do with the creative mindset, or when you're listening to multiple takes of an artist's music, is that a lot of people will do everything they can to get rid of everything that's bad, everything that's slightly off time, slightly off pitch, not perfect. And what happens is while you're doing that and redoing the take and listening for what's wrong, you're ignoring what's right. You're ignoring the things that are going to excite the listener. You're ignoring the things that have passion, that are actually going to get somebody to say, "Wow, that performance moved me," rather than that performance was really boring, but it was in perfect timing and pitch and tune. And that's something that I really took to heart. The idea that what you're doing, it should be, content that is not offensive, or content where nothing is wrong is okay, but stuff that's good is actually better. And I've been told many times that, what I'm doing is wrong, and what I'm doing is going to get me in trouble, and what I'm doing is going to alienate every client on the planet to the point where nobody will ever want to do business with me. And what I'm finding about 40 years into this is that, again, right now, so I have the store, which is doing well. This week we have a security system installation to do. That's it's gonna be about a few hours of work, profit a few $1,000s. I have the class, so I have students coming here. Some of them are people who are paying out of pocket from their own small repair shops. One of them a few weeks ago came from a large reverse logistics company with 40,000 square foot warehouse, an 3D X-ray machine, like that Nordson 3D X-ray machine that I've been drooling over. They paid to send somebody here. I've been selling the flux and the chipsets online for a few months. That's been going very well. Just recently, I opened up a forum where I answer questions online. I answer a lot of these questions on how to fix boards. A few days after opening, that's already up to 40 monthly subscribers, and it's gaining by several every day. I don't really. I actually got asked recently if I wanted to be interviewed for a movie called $1 Billion Bully about Yelp and their practices, and that's a movie they had a Kickstarter budget of something like $100,000 or $200,000. They flew out here to visit. So what I'm finding is that. Opportunities keep finding me, and that I am still expanding my business, still reaching out and doing new things, and that my profitability does not seem to have been affected at all by the content that I produce. And I'm also finding, if I go back to that Mixerman forums, the Womb forums, I'm going to talk about some other members there in a moment that reinforced to me that what I'm doing is the right thing to do. But what I want to talk about here is the misconception I feel a lot of people have. Again, a lot of people think I cannot put out content that's going to irritate people or piss them off in any way, shape, or form, because if I do that, I am going to lose them as a customer. I may lose a potential customer. And everybody thinks about not losing a potential customer. In the same way that what Bob Olson is saying when it comes to everybody's thinking about, is this out of tune? Is this out of pitch? Is this slightly off time? We're looking for the things that are wrong rather than embracing the things that are right and trying to highlight the things that are right. We're constantly focusing on removing the things that are wrong. So what I think is important here is that there are I would say that there are millions and millions of people in the world that could potentially be your customer. Millions of consumers and millions of different businesses. And you could live from now to 10,000 years old, and the reality is that if you live from now to 10,000 years old, you will not service 0.001% of the people who could potentially be your customer. It is not possible. It's simply not going to happen. So when you look at the pool of millions and millions of people who you could potentially do business with, it's simply not going to be possible for you to do business with every single one of them. There's only a very, very small percentage that you can do business with. So what I would say is the best way to go about promoting yourself is to focus on making really good content, really good marketing, really good advertising, really good promotions, really good in-store policies that are an honest reflection of who you are. And regardless of covering things up because you think that those things that you're covering up may deter people from doing business with you. And the reason I say that is because there are a lot of people that are going to be directly compatible with you. In the same way that Zafrank says they're Googling the same thing that you're Googling at the same time, you're going to find that there are these people that just intuitively agree with and understand how you do business. You have the same world's view. You have the same ideas on how to treat people. You have the same ideas on so many different things. And because you have the same idea on so many different things and you're just on the same wavelength, doing business is easy. There's no distrust. There's no paranoia, there's no scandal, there's no misunderstandings and miscommunications, there's no surprises when it comes to things like price. When you are thinking, we didn't talk about this specific function, and he's away and not going to be back for a month, but I need to implement this. What should I do? That you're going to implement the same thing so that that person is going to be happy. You're going to notice that when you're doing business with people who are on the same wavelength as you, that you just cut through so much of the paperwork or the implied paperwork, and everything just becomes so much easier, and everything is so much more manageable, and everything comes out so much more successful. And when you're doing business with people who are not on the same wavelength as you, or even worse, when you're doing business with people who have the opposite ideas on how to manage a project as you, when you're doing business with people who have the opposite idea of how to treat a contractor or how to treat a client than you do, what you're going to find is that everything is an argument, everything is a surprise, everything is a conflict, everything is a nightmare, and nothing is going to go well. Even when you both have good intentions, when you both have good intentions for one another and actually get along, things are not going well because your worldviews are so far apart. Because when you're making those little assumptions where you just feel like it would just be pedantic to just go on and ask questions about every part of the process, when you're just making these basic little assumptions about how human beings interact and you're wrong every step of the way, that doing business with those customers is a complete and utter nightmare. Whether it's the smallest sale in the world of selling a screen protector or you're selling a $20,000 system, it's a nightmare. And what you're going to find is that when you do content that is very bland and very generic, you're not going to amaze the people who are like you, who would get along with you, who are on your wavelength. But you're going to attract a lot of the people that you're not on the same wavelength with, that you wouldn't have good synergy working on projects with. You're going to attract them because you didn't offend them away by being honest with yourself. So here's an interesting example right over here, and it's a YouTube comment, and you probably can't read it because I fucked up when I was doing this, and I said Open Broadcaster to rescale down to 720p. So I'm going to zoom in because I know that you probably can barely read this shit, and I'm very sorry for that. So we're in a video here that I did called When It's Time to Fire Your Customers, Rossman Reads Yelp Reviews. And this is a video that I did 3 years ago. It's about a 3-year-old video. And what I'm doing is I'm reading the Yelp reviews of another business that's about 2,000 miles away. And I'm reading one specific Yelp review where I'm talking about a customer who is incredibly high maintenance. The guy wrote about almost 6 pages of just stuff where he's talking about how people need to do business the exact way that he wants it done, and how this business is going to be punished when they lose all of his huge clients because they didn't do business the way that he expected them to do business. He expected them to do business in a very specific way, and he didn't. And I was talking about how 80% of your problems will come from 20% of your clients, and that's only okay if that 20% of your clients are making you 80% of your money. If they're not, you kind of have to think about it. So I'm reading a review of another business. That's what I want you to be clear of here. And the comment I get here that I'll read is, "Man, you are the worst. How dare you out your customer because you don't like them? I doubt you will stay in business with this attitude. If you don't want customers who complain, close your door. I would never risk using you if my life depended on it. Act like a business owner and not a crybaby about anyone you don't like." So let's go over this point because it's an interesting point that the person made. So what they're doing is they're getting across the idea, their whole idea, their spiel is that I should not be complaining about my customers on the internet and outing them. So the first thing here is that I haven't outed my customer because I don't know the name of the customer. As you know, Yelp occasionally changes the names of things. Like I'll get a review on Yelp that says 5 stars from for something like, let's say it'll say, Jill B, and I'll look it up in my database, and it'll be James something, and it'll just be kind of confusing. So sometimes the names on Yelp are a little different. But first things first is I don't have this person's name because I got it from a Yelp review where the full name was not posted. As any of you know, most people on Yelp, if not all of them, you can't see the full name. So it's impossible for me to actually out the customer because all I have is the information from a Yelp review. The second thing is when he says your customer, because it should be very obvious to anybody who checks out this video, even from the very beginning, what I'm talking about is the customer of another business. So who are you saying, how dare you out your customer? Not only have I not outed a customer, but it's actually not a customer of my business. It's a customer of somebody else's business. So I'm reading a review of a reviewer that I don't know the name of, so nothing to out, of another business. And then he goes on to say, I would never risk using you if my life depended on it. So this is a great example of not being on the same page. So I've said in the video, I am going to read the review of another business, not mine. And he didn't hear that. And then he said, I would never risk using you if my life depended on it, blah, blah, blah. And then he moves on to some, silly little insults like crybaby and whatnot. So the thing I want to bring up here is, yes, that video that I did offend somebody. However, it offended somebody that is unable to listen and unable to read. Because if you were able to listen or read, then this person would have heard that I said I was not talking about my business. And the reason this is important is because a lot of the times that we get in trouble are when people hear something different than what we say. So one of the videos that I did a really long time ago that, a lot of the old videos don't really get checked out, but I suggest some of them is, let me just find it here. It feels so weird searching for myself. Blah, blah. Lame. Let's see. Let's see if I even have enough of a brain to find my own damn content. Come on. No, it's there. Seriously? Really? Here we go. So in this video, I talk about why you're not responsible for what you say, you're responsible for what people hear. You're not responsible for what you're not responsible for what you say. You're responsible for what people hear. I talked about that in this 12-minute long video. And the idea here is the same. So what I said is I'm reading a review of another business. What he heard is that I'm talking about my customer of my business. And as you'll see, as you get more business experience, most of the time, you're not getting in trouble. You're not getting in trouble because of what you said. You're getting in trouble because of what somebody else decided to hear. If I say, you have a 1-year warranty that does not cover physical damage, very often they'll hear you have a 1-year warranty and that covers if you physically damage it. This happens all the time. And it's not because they're liars and scammers, it's because that's what they decided to hear. Or for example, with motherboard repair. So, my business does a lot of motherboard repair. I'll tell people, we are repairing your motherboard. I'm not kidding when I say that 99%, if not 100% of the people that come into the store say, okay, cool, so you replaced my board, right? And I'm like, well, no, we said repair. And they go, I thought you were replacing it. And I used to think in my head, maybe I have a mental defect and I'm saying replace instead of repair. And then we started doing email quotes for a month after this happened just to see what was going on. And I had a lot of cases where in the email it said, we are repairing your board, where it's text. You cannot get that wrong because there's a written record of it. And people said, you said I was replacing it. Or you said you were replacing it. And then I would look back and I go, did you see this email? And read it. Oh, yeah, I understand. So and this happens with a lot of different things in business. I talked about it with the camera video where I said we're putting wires on the wall. And they heard we're putting wires in the wall when I said on the wall. That was one of those things where that could have turned into like a $50,000 or $100,000 misinterpretation. But my point is that a lot of the issues in business come from miscommunication. They come from people hearing something different than what you say. So this person over here is genuinely offended to the point where he will never use my business, which to me is an absolutely amazing and excellent thing, because I cannot do business with people who do not listen to what I say. If I say we are starting on Monday, and they show up on Sunday night wondering why I'm not ready, and they say, you said Sunday, or I thought I could show up on Sunday because they didn't listen to me, great. I didn't offend them with my content. I never put up a video saying, fuck people who show up early, or here's why it's not good to show up early even if you're paying, whatever. But now I have an angry customer who has an expectation that I do something that I don't have the ability to do. So shedding customers through this is a good thing. Or there's, another video I did recently. Let's just look this up and see if I can actually find my own video. Here we go. There was a comment on that video. Let's find it. Here we go. I get where you're coming from. Problem is, what happens when your CX or potential CX, I'm guessing that means client or customers or prescription of some sort, see this video. Based on this rant, I would steer clear of your company and you in general. Some rants of you just keep to yourself in favor of, say, a paycheck. And again, this is a great point to bring up, and it's really something that I want to bring up to a lot of new people because it is an important point. So this video has 71 people that hate it. It's got 958 people that like it. And again, this is what I want people to be focusing on. And here's the other thing. And even if this video had more dislikes than likes, again, dislikes doesn't take away the revenue from the people who liked it. Let's say that I have the ability to service 30 tickets a day, right? So if I put out content out to as many people as possible, if I get 900 people every day that say, I would never walk into this store, but I find 40 people a day that say, I want to walk into this store. The 900 people that don't like the content that will not walk into the store don't take away at all from the 40 people that walk in wanting to spend money. The people who don't like you are not going to actually take the money, rip the money out of your bank account that the people who are okay with your business put into your bank account. It doesn't matter. All you need to do is focus on the positivity and focus on gaining people who are compatible with you, people who are compatible with your mindset, people who are compatible with how you do business. And you do that by putting out honest content that is as true to yourself as it can be. Because again, if you try to water down your content and put out advertising or marketing materials or YouTube content or Twitter content that is completely watered down, completely stuff that is, again, just designed to not be, at all controversial ever, you're never giving out your opinion, you're never really being honest about, who you are, you lose opportunity to amaze people and you lose opportunities to impress people who are like-minded to you. And those like-minded people are going to be people that you can start business relationships with that are very, very profitable. Again, this reverse logistics company that just sent somebody, I never thought that I would get students from one of these large reverse logistics companies. I never thought that a company that could afford 40,000 square foot facility and a $125,000 X-ray machine for finding PC board faults would want to come to my little shitbox of an office and, come to that little shitbox of an office and send students for thousands of dollars to learn board repair. That blew my mind. But they showed up because the content I made genuinely spoke to one of the engineering people at that company, and it genuinely spoke to them, and in a manner that it would not have spoken to them if I said, today we are going to fix a PCB, and we are going to upload the video when it is done to the internet. And here is how we are going to fix the piece. No, it didn't appeal to them. What appeals to people is content that is honest. And again, regardless of how many people you offend, it truly doesn't matter. We're not in politics here. What matters is finding those very few people that like your content. If I offend 50,000 people a day, but I can get 30 people a day to walk into my store, I will be, I will pay my apartment rent. I will put money away. I will still have a Vandersteen Model 3A speaker system in my home. My cat will still eat wellness. My store rent will still be paid. It doesn't matter. I am here to create content that is going to be interesting to the target demographic, to the people who are genuinely going to be compatible with the way I do business. And you find those people who are going to be compatible with how you do business by not being afraid to be honest with others. And another really important point here, the most important point of this entire video, is that when you start doing content, when you start marketing yourself, when you start promoting yourself in an honest fashion where you're not just coming up with what you think people want to hear, but you start coming up with things that are based on, how you feel, how you live your life, how you do business, when you start really defining who you are and putting that type of content up, what happens is you're forced to be honest with yourself in a manner that you haven't been before. So I find that ever since I started doing this content, I've had to question some of my own belief systems. I've had to question some of the ways that I do business. I've had to question the way that I hire people, all because when I get on camera to explain something that I've thought about, or I explain an idea that's bothered me, I have to explain it well enough that other people understand the idea. That's the whole point. If I'm going to explain something, or I'm going to get across some type of rant video, I have to, if I'm putting it up online, there's the idea that other people are going to be listening to it. Why would I create content for other people that they couldn't understand? It wouldn't make sense. So I have to make sure that other people understand it, which means I have to explain it in a rational fashion. So if I can't explain myself so other people can understand it, there's a good chance that I myself don't understand it. So what happens when you start creating that content that's true to who you are is that you start learning how to be honest with yourself, which is one of the most important lessons that you could ever start learning in life that has absolutely nothing to do with business. And again, I am just one example of many of people who put up honest content, who don't put up bullshit, who don't sugarcoat what they think, who manages to be successful. I'm just one person. Again, I still have a business, I still have a store, I still have, again, a security system installation to do this week that's going to profit thousands of dollars for a few hours at a time. I still have people coming for classes. And again, the people coming for classes, none of these people would know I exist if I didn't put up this content. The 40 or so people who joined a forum paying a monthly subscription fee to get answers from myself and somebody else who's 10 times worse than I am when it comes to putting up politically incorrect or unprofessional content on the internet, zero of those people, zero of them would know who I was if not for this content. The people buying the Flux containers and the ISL chips, none of them would know who I am without this content. And a lot of people that are mailing stuff in would not know that we existed without this content. So I'm one example of, I feel now at the almost 4-year mark of a company that's, again, doing just fine doing this type of content. And dare I would say, I think that we're doing actually better than a lot of the companies out there that are putting that really generic bullshit crap, just regurgitated content on YouTube that is stuff that, again, I wouldn't watch if I was on the toilet. It's just really boring. I don't see them really just millions and billions of dollars ahead of me. Call me crazy. I don't see it. And let's just bring up a couple of other examples here. So one of the people I was talking about on that forum was Mixerman. So he's on the Womb forums, and Mixerman wrote a book. He wrote an honest-to-God book that I remember reading in 2008 and just thinking it was amazing. He wrote this great book on a band that he was recording. And he wrote a book about everything that drove him nuts about this band, all the things they were doing wrong, all the money being wasted on this group, which is just such a taboo in the music industry. I mean, I repair consumer electronics. Frankly, who gives a fuck about me? I am a small fish that nobody gives two shits of a fuck about. But in music, I mean, this is just stuff that's unheard of. I mean, you hear of scandal when it comes to tabloids and all that, but the idea of, there is the idea that a studio control room like that, that's kind of like a sanctuary. I mean, you're not supposed to let what goes on in a control room, you're not supposed to let that out in the real world. If somebody has a meltdown in the control room, if somebody does something they're not supposed to, that's supposed to be a special place that you really don't let that stuff out into the real world. And he wrote an entire book about all the bullshit and stupidity that was experienced with one band, which is just something that got him a lot of flack and a lot of criticism, even though the content was amazingly insightful, amazingly funny, and written by somebody who's a genuinely talented mixer. It's just something that that a lot of people said you shouldn't fucking do, and this guy, if anybody figures out who he is, he's not going to make money again. Nobody will ever hire him. He did a great thing with the Mixerman Diaries. And the thing that happened with the Mixerman Diaries is that the people eventually, he was outed and people figured out who he is. So again, it's been a long time since I looked this up, but his name is Eric Serafin. I'm sorry if I'm getting the name wrong. I'm not good with name pronunciation, and he has a lot of good credits. And one of the things that you'll notice if you look him up, he wrote that documentary in the mid 2000s. Man, it looks like he's still getting credits. It looks like he's still mixing albums. It looks like he's still doing, he's still doing what he does. And again, I don't see this guy, opening up Kickstarters to, for his couch surfing to world tour because he makes no money as a recording or mixing engineer. It seems like he's still doing just fine for himself. And again, he's not putting up little videos on the internet, just, talking about, just basic things over the course of his life. He wrote an honest-to-God published book on a band that he was producing. And again, you're just not supposed to do that. You can write a book on, what was it like to work with the Beatles and one thing or the other, but to write content that is just so genuinely condescending and looking down on the people that you're working with, you're not supposed to do that. And he did it, and because it was so honest and done from the heart, and just this really good. Just this really natural way, and this honest kind of from a humble and honest place, it was received very well. It was very good content, and his reputation, if anything, has gone up since he published that content. And again, this is somebody who's far more important than I am, far more influential than I am, far more experienced in both life and and the professional world than I am, who's doing just fine for himself. And there are a lot of people out there just like him. So what I would encourage all of you to do, when you hear people saying, you can't write a blog on this, or how dare you do that, you should only care if you're not being honest with yourself and what you're doing. If you're writing content or you're producing marketing material that is not true to how you do business and is not true to who you are, because you think that's what's going to get you more business, then you should really worry about the content you're producing. But for anything else, don't worry about what you're producing or how you're producing it, because frankly, the only thing that matters is that the content that you create is content that you put effort into and is content that is again from the heart in this really honest way. Because what I can tell you and assure you of in the global world, this global internet age, is that there are other people out there that think like you. And there are other people out there that think like you, that need your services, and that may even need services that you yourself don't offer yet. Again, I never thought that I would be offering a class. I never thought I would be doing tutoring. I never thought that I would have a forum where I answer questions. I never thought I'd be selling Flux. All of these things happened from a community of people that figured out who I was from these stupid internet videos. And this is stuff that I wasn't doing. People kept asking for it over and over again. Louis, will you teach a class? If I gave you $1,000 for a day, can I sit with you and learn board repair? Can you sell this? Where do I get this? I would pay you $30-something for a stupid tube of that crap just because everything I'm getting on Amazon is fake. I would pay money to be able to ask you questions. Like all this stuff that I'm doing right now is business that I solicited, but I was never really offering the service, I was soliciting my content, I was soliciting the videos, but I never really offered any of these individual services. And I'm offering them now. So you may find that even if my content, even if it in some way resulted in less people walking into my store, right? Even if, let's say, one less person a month walked into my store because of the content that I did, and I lost $300 a month in income. Is it worth it to lose $300 a month in income to gain this new audience, to gain 10 people willing to pay $1,000 a day to come for a month and learn stuff, to gain a forum of people who are willing to pay to have myself and Duke answer board repair questions, to pay for somebody who found my videos funny, who decided, okay, because we think this stuff is interesting and also true, let's have this guy install our security system instead of somebody else, What you're going to find is that you find the business that you may not find the exact business that you set out to get, but when you're honest in how you promote yourself and you're honest about who you are with other people, that you will solicit the business that is right for you. Whether or not it's the business that you sought out, it will be the business that you're best fit for. And I can say that, by far, that's the type of business that I want to be getting. And it's something that I learned that I would have never learned if I didn't start doing this type of content.